I was going to the market that day in Jerusalem. As I was walking to the market, I could hear loud jeering and loud voices. I wondered what all the commotion was about. And then I remembered the news was going around about the Barabbas, a murderer, had been released, and Jesus, a rabbi, took his place to be crucified, which is what the people demanded Pilate to do. I wasn't there that day, but the news of the rabbi was getting some people very excited, like some of his followers. They thought he would release them from Roman tyranny. However, he was captured instead and blamed for blasphemy as well as other things by many members of the Sanhedrin, but not all of them. As I got closer to the marketplace, I saw long lines of people in the street. Soon I became one of them. I could see from a distance the top of a tree or piece of wood that was moving very slowly down the path. As I drew nearer, I could hear voices yelling and whips beating against flesh. Yet the person didn't curse them or beg for mercy. Then I saw the man. He was beaten down and could barely hold the cross. The closer I got, I saw his face streaming with blood. A Roman officer told a spectator to take over the cross since the man was slipping and could barely carry it any longer. He did, gruntingly, but soon he complained and handed the soldiers the cross back for someone else to carry. Though I didn't know this man, I had heard of him. His name was Jesus. Suddenly, I felt a deep compassion for this stranger that was coming closer to me. He met up with a woman that looked like his mother, who was weeping profusely along with several other women at her side. Jesus tried to stand up as much as he could, but he was falling, and she reached over to him to try to help him up. This must have been her tiny baby that she once held closely and coddled. Now he was going to his death, and she could barely hold on to him. She embraced him, but only momentarily, since the Roman soldiers whipped and chided and laughed at him as they pushed him onward toward the hill that he would be crucified on. As they got closer to where I was now standing in horror, watching while others laughed, jeered, and even spit on him, he fell several times. Soon he approached where I was standing, and I could see dirt, sweat, and even more blood that was dripping from his face. I couldn't stand it. I had to wipe his face with my cloth, even if it meant only a few seconds of relief. I think I heard him whisper, "Thank you," in a voice that was so weak and barely audible. Another Roman soldier pushed me out of his way. I stood back and looked at my cloth. I couldn't believe what I saw. The imprint of his face, not just the blood, was marked on my cloth. I felt compelled to stay and see what would happen to this man, even though I had many other things to do. Right after Jesus passed me, he fell. The soldiers continued to beat him till he barely stood up. Some women rushed to his side as to console him, but he seemed to be consoling them instead, with the last breath he had left. As he approached the hill, he fell again, But once he was up the hill, the soldiers lifted him and stripped him of his garments. One could hear his screeches from the tearing off of the cloth of his bloody body. They laid him down and nailed him to the cross. I could hear breathless screams coming from him. As the loud sounds of the nails dug into his flesh, the crowd jeered again. They lifted his cross, and he hung between two men. I think they were guilty of something, but it seemed as if he was an innocent lamb. They gave him something to drink, but he spat it out. His body was collapsing. I drew nearer to hear what he was saying because I couldn't hear from so far away. He said, "Father, forgive them. They know not what they do." Then the sun went down. Oh my, I can't believe someone would forgive such torturous and humiliating behaviors. Several people, including a few women, knelt beneath the cross and sobbed. One looked like his mother that had tried to comfort him before she was pushed away. The others were the women with her. He told one of the men standing by to take care of his mother. Later, he cried out, my God, why have you abandoned me?" A second later, he said, "It is finished." Then, with his very last breath, he said, "Into your hands I commend my spirit." With that, he bowed his head and died. Then the earth began to shake. The rest of the people were running in different directions with no place to go. And I heard the chief soldier say, "Truly, he was the Son of God." I looked up at the cross, and it read, "King of the Jews." I realized this was the man that people were talking about, who healed people and performed miracles that many claimed was the Messiah. After the earth stood still, a few of his friends, or so it seemed, that were still gathered, took him down from the cross and laid him in his mother's lap. She agonized intensely, along with the other women who sobbed and tried to comfort her. Then they took him from her, and she and the other friends followed us. They laid him in the tomb. I stood and watched. Since that day, I have never been the same.